Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm going to do another live commentary Blitz video, except it's not actually live, it's kind of pseudo live commentary. But I'm sharing another game I played in Vegas just over a week ago. I played against Varuzhan Akobian in the Walter Browne Memorial Blitz. We played two really interesting, crazy, hard fought games. You're going to see the first game that we played in this one. And without further ado, enjoy the video. Let's get into the live commentary. So I start with d4. He plays e6. And we had a small issue with the clock getting it to start. Chess clocks can be confusing sometimes. But eventually we managed. Bishop f4, knight f6, e3. Now he plays b6, and I was happy to play this line queen f3, which is a tricky line, and he had a bit of hesitation here. I actually played this line against him in a blitz game about 2 years ago online, which I remembered because we did like a collaboration on Twitch.
Yeah, this was actually played by my student against me.
Oh,
And he might have seen it from your streams. One of my new students, R. Frankel. So he played against me this, and first I didn't know anything about it. Then I looked at it, and I realized that there were games played in this with Shimanov and a few other grandmasters.
I'll have to dig up the footage from that. But he beat me in that game. But I was still happy to get this variation, knew the basic plans, go for this move pawn h4, which is one of the top engine ideas. The idea is to get the pawn to h5. And speaking of the engine, I'm actually going to turn on the eval bar just because we're going to see some crazy fluctuations later. But one of the ideas of putting the pawn on h5 is with the setup of bishop on f4 and queen on g3, black does not have knight h5 because the rook now covers h5. So it's a little bit awkward for black. He plays c5. And now I take some time because I wanted to play bishop c7, but ultimately I decide to play knight f3. Afterwards, I'll analyze the funny lines that could have happened with bishop c7. And still in the opening phase, knight b d7. And this position I castle, which I thought is a very normal move, but it turns out to be a bit of a mistake because now my king is a ripe target for a queenside attack. And he really wasted no time before playing b5. And now I'm realizing this pawn storm is coming very quickly. But nice thing is I do have a small edge on the clock. I take on c5. And I'm up about 40 seconds. He's falling below 2 minutes. He's taking a lot of time in the opening, but probably for good reason because now black is getting a lot of initiative. My knight has to move away from c3. And it's a difficult spot because wherever I move my knights, this knight e4 move is coming. So at this point, I'm realizing I'm in a little bit of trouble. And I'm also burning away my time advantage. So I decide on knight a4. And then he instantly plays knight e4. And I'm realizing, oh no, my queen's attacked and it's tied down to f2. I've abandoned my f-pawn, but I figure that I should still try and play quickly and try and get some compensation. Try and treat the blunder as a gambit. And if he takes on f2, maybe I can just develop a sacked exchange and still get some activity in the middle game. And he took some time here because knight f2 is not the only candidate move. He also has moves like queen a5 hitting the knight or knight takes c5, but he decides on rook c8, putting more pressure against the pawn, leaving f2 still attacked. So I'm trying to figure out how to do damage control. I hesitate a bit. I'm looking for moves to defend my very tender f-pawn. But I also want to make sure the queen side is under control. I do play g4. So defending the f-pawn with the queen, but now he just gets monster initiative on the queen side. Queen a5 attacking the knight, provoking b3. He takes on c5, and I'm realizing that most of my pieces are stuck on the king side, not defending my king, which is on the queen side. And this is where I'm losing a little bit of focus in my head, but also in the camera. Oh no, my focus. This only lasts a few more seconds, I think. So hopefully we can still see the position clearly. Bishop d3 played, but we can see the eval bar very much in black's favor. He takes on a4. I take back. And my shelter for my king is just gradually crumbling. And this position, there's a lot of attractive moves for black. But he's still taking time. I realized my hope in this game is probably on the clock. So I still play quickly. I get rid of the knight. I didn't want to allow knight c3. He recaptures. And I play knight d4. Nice central square defending the c2 pawn. But I still have a ton of worries in the position, given that the c-file is open. a2 is hanging. He starts with bishop c5, threatening to take the knight, and then checkmate on c2. So I'm looking for ways to defend. I play knight b3, obstructing the queen, holding onto the knight. a2 is still undefended, and he snags it. I play bishop e5, which is actually a nice square for the bishop, essentially a wooden shield. XQC would be proud. Attacking the pawn on g7, also helping defend some key squares. And he's still taking time, falling below 20 seconds. Plays f6. I drop the bishop back to b2, and he castles. And then I play g5. I really spent no time on this move. It was more of a gut instinct trying to just create chaos in the position. I realize that I'm in trouble, so why not make things messy? Bishop d5 was a really nice move. Adding another attacker. I get rid of the bishop, sacrificing the rook, and then I take on h6. And this is where the whole position just explodes. He sacrifices his queen, because if I take, then he has bishop d6 discovery, so I take on g7, hitting the rook. His queen's still undefended. He plays rook f7. I play h6. I don't want to take his queen and allow bishop d6. After takes, king h7, blockading my pawns. I feel like the momentum is shifting, but how to make progress with my kingside pawns. I play king b1. He takes on e3. I'm just trying to find a way to get to his king. I'm also getting low on time, falling below 40 seconds. Play queen h5, hitting the rook, threatening queen f5. At this point, I think I'm winning, but he has queen f3, attacking my queen and also hitting the rook. So I take on f7. He takes on h1. I play king a2. I still think I'm winning here, but after rook g8, queen f6, he takes on h6, queen f5, queen g6, queen h3. I have at least a perpetual. I also have a little bit of time on the clock, so I'm searching for some way to try and play for a win. But ultimately, I decide that it's not worth playing another move than continuing the checks. Play queen h3, queen h6, queen f5, and we agree to a draw. Not the firmest of handshakes, but I think we were both a little bit disappointed that we didn't take advantage of our winning chances. I think Var was probably more disappointed given that he had such a crushing position in the middle game. So let's hop into some analysis and just share a bunch of the critical moments because there's so much to learn. There's so many moments where Black had a knockout blow. I missed at least one knockout blow. And it started with a really fun opening. This non-traditional London, the early queen to f3. As I mentioned, it's an opening I played against Var online a couple years ago, and it's a nice surprise weapon. I've played this a good handful of times in Bullet, where players pre-move bishop b7, and I just win the bishop and just instantly win the game pretty much. But of course, he didn't blunder material. He played d5. And the first moment I want to show is after queen g3, c5, the engine actually likes to move bishop c7 in this position. And I didn't take too much time here because I played knight f3 pretty quickly. But bishop c7 is a very adventurous line, which I think would have been risky for white. If I toggle it on, yeah, Stockfish says white's slightly preferable here. But after queen c8 takes knight d7, the bishop would be forced to a5. And I mean, it's a very computerish way of playing that I didn't really put much time towards considering during the game. So what happened was after knight f3, knight d7, I think the first big mistake on my part was castling queenside, because this just walks straight into his attack. And very often white does castle queenside in this line, but I should have realized that black is in very good shape to attack and probably held off. Engine suggesting bishop d3 or knight e5, just more centralizing moves. But after castling and b5, things only got worse for me, because after takes b4, yeah, it just went downhill very quickly. Knight a4 turned out to be a big blunder. The engine says bishop c7 is the only way not to be losing for white, to basically prevent the queen from eventually coming to a5. And after queen e7, there's bishop d6, and maybe there's some potential repetition. And if queen c8, I think the idea here is after knight a4, knight e4, I was going to say I have the h4 square for the queen, but maybe there's some compensation, like queen f4, and even if knight takes f2, yeah, there's a lot of potential compensation. Knight b6, somehow white's better here. But going back to what happened in the game, I played knight a4, and then it was just basically trying to deal with his nonstop flurry of punches. Rook c8, okay, I defend f2, and then he plays queen a5. Like every move, it felt like I was getting punched in the face. And we see the engine like already giving -8 in black's favor. And there's actually a moment going back before queen takes a4. There's an amazing knockout blow here for black, pawn b3. And I mean, this would have been the way that the engine just destroys white in this position, because my c pawn is pinned. And if a takes b3, there's bishop a3, king b1, knight c3, and yeah, it's -20. Knight takes a4, sacrificing the knights. If I take, then queen c3 is force mate. Otherwise, queen c3 is still coming, and it's not pretty. Bishop e5, knight c3 back. Yeah, eventually, the engine will find some force mate. -24. So I was lucky to survive after queen takes a4, getting rid of the knights. And this goes to show that even when the engine says one side is completely winning, sometimes in a blitz game between humans, it's not so simple. And he still found a lot of good moves, like bishop c5 was a great move. And then queen takes a2 and f6. This is all fine for black. I was holding on by a thread. And I think after castling, this is maybe the moment where I had a glimmer of hope with this move pawn g5. Just doing anything possible to try and break through. I was really happy with this move because black either has to allow taking on h6, or if he takes with h-pawn, I have pawn h6. White's actually winning here. And if it takes with the f-pawn, then I have rook d7, which in black is still okay if he finds rook f7, but at least white has some initiative. So g5 definitely muddied the waters. And after bishop d5, takes, black is still winning according to the engine, but we're going to see that in order for him to win, he has to find some difficult moves. And he actually found queen takes b3, one of the winning moves, sacrificing the queen. But after takes, he played rook f7, and then gradually it got more and more tricky because I'm threatening to play h7. And after bishop takes e3, valuation swings, and now white's winning. The only winning move for black in this position was to forcibly sacrifice the queen. Queen takes c2. It's the only way to keep enough initiative and simplify. King takes c2, bishop d6. I'd move the king, he takes, and then I'm not even threatening h7. And yeah, I mean, maybe it still takes some technique. King h7, nice move to blockade. Yeah, I mean, this should be winning, but still takes work for black. But going back to what happened in the game, I was winning after bishop takes e3, because after takes, okay, he played king h7. I missed the only completely winning move here. Now, I played king b1, which is still keeping an edge for white, but there's a really nice move, queen f2, covering e3, keeping c2 defended, and threatening queen f5. And yeah, if pawn f5, then yeah, there's some crazy engine sequence suggesting promote to a bishop. Oh, Stockfish is so savage. Promote to bishop or queen works. But the point is that the rook is tied down to pinning the pawn. So if rook takes, I take the queen for free. And if king takes, then I essentially sacrifice the other pawn. And then the king is left very naked. The engine says there's force mate here. We'll just press spacebar to see the force mate. Yeah, this is pretty brutal. I don't even have to take the queen in the end. Mate is imminent. So I missed queen f2. It was hard to find under time pressure. I played the move king b1, and he takes on e3. I played queen h5. White is still winning, but the only way to win in this position is to promote. And I mean, given the fact that I only had a few seconds to make my next move, it was too tempting to take the rook. The reason why promoting is better is because white wants to create a situation where I take the rook with check. So after takes, this is completely winning because f6 is hanging next. And if king takes, then h7. And if takes and I take and it's winning, if king h8 takes. And this is different compared to what we got in the game because f6 is just falling. And I guess there is d4. Like there's some crazy engine lines here. Queen f6, king h7. I win the rook eventually. But then it still takes a lot of technique to win. Yeah, anything could have happened. So going back, I missed my shot to promote. I took the rook. And now black is winning again because after takes here, rook g8, what happened in the game, he has a move queen f3 here. And this is winning for black because I don't have queen f5 check. My pawns are blockaded. And there's actually no good way for white to make progress. If queen takes a6, then black can start pushing the pawn. And the king is actually quite safe on h7. So I was fortunate that instead of finding this winning move, queen f3, he took on h6. And then the game ended peacefully, as we saw. So it was a crazy roller coaster game. Just for fun, let me show the engine graph, because I did do the engine analysis here. And we can see the graph. Okay, I was better after the opening, and then it just went downhill. He was winning for most of the middle game, and then things turned around, and I was winning, and then he was winning again, and then it was a draw. So we both played at 78% accuracy. He made 2 blunders, I made 4 blunders. That's the nature of Blitz chess. Hope you guys were entertained, and do stay tuned for the next video where we'll have another crazy battle to witness. And again, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like it, leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.